Hey, what's up, everybody? Time for another game theory video. And if you like the videos, like, sub, silly comment, share, support the channel if you want. I appreciate it. Thanks. Today, I want to talk about the ether of video game characters, archetypes, game systems, homogenization as usual in games, right? What makes a character unique, right? A lot of different sort of broad topics. Again, I'll ramble as usual. Maybe you can pick out a little bit of things that apply to you that you find interesting, right? And I was thinking about this because I saw this recently. This got recommended on Twitter, X, whatever the fuck it's called, I guess now, right? And it made me think about this and to comment on this from different angles, right? First of all, when I see the, quoting, it got me thinking about how the more unique a character is usually, the more cringe they are to fight against, right? Example, Guilty Gear. To that, I would say correlation doesn't equal causation when we look at the above, looking at JP, because Street Fighter 6 is such a homogenized game that anything that seems different sticks out. Inevitably, if a game is very homogenized, right? That's going to happen. So when you have characters that are homogenized, and then you have characters that have such a different kind of game plan, so to speak, right? They're going to seem unique, right? But using Guilty Gear as an example, I don't even think that really counts, because Guilty Gear, generally, quotation marks, take with a grain of salt maybe, has made pretty unique characters all around, I think. The characters are generally pretty well done, right? They all kind of do their own same thing. Now, of course, unfortunately, once you got to say, plus R, then maybe XR more so, a lot of characters, the sort of game plan, it kind of felt like just knocking you down into my version of a big fireball. You got to hold my mix up, right? There's only so much you can do with a fighting game, right? But I would say for the most part, even Strive has a lot of different unique characters. And, someone might sort of say, I would actually say that Kai is a unique character, right? A Fireball Dragon Punch character, if not every character is a Fireball Dragon Punch character, then the Fireball Dragon Punch character is unique, right? And again, Strive is a stupid game, but Strive, I think they do a good job of having kind of unique characters. It's just the system that sucks, right? Just like Street Fighter 6, right? I mean, I said one of the problems with Street Fighter 6 was going to be that the system was going to be more important than the characters, right? And what is the main things you see when people talk about Street Fighter 6? Fucking complaining about Slimer, drive impact, all this kind of shit. Oh, you can just Slimer all this, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to relate this to JP in a second, right? So again, what do we hear about Street Fighter 6? Oh, Slimer, blah, 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 right? You hear about how much people hate the hurt boxes and hitboxes on moves, which isn't that one of the main things I said was going to be a problem in the game. I just saw me getting recommended videos about infiltration complaining about how stupid they are, right? And you do see people complain about characters like JP, for having such a sort of, let's say, anime sort of zoning, whatever you want to relate them to sort of character. Maybe not a traditional Street Fighter character, right? And that's something that I've talked about for how many fucking years now during the progression of video games, fighting games specifically, that, I always think it's funny that these foundational things that made fighting games popular in the first place, just something as simple as a Dragon Punch, continues to get toned down throughout the years. And yet you have characters like JP who are fucking zoning you and doing anime sort of fill the screen, whatever you want to call it shit. Blanca with his anime sort of mix-ups with late baby Blanca, whatever the fuck it's called, right? I just always think that's weird that you basically have quotation marks, whatever you want to call them, anime characters in a Street Fighter game. But the rapage, I guess, of fucking fundamental Street Fighter shit, right? But to play devil's advocate, what I want to talk about is JP perhaps couldn't exist in a game like Street Fighter 6. And unless JP could not exist unless it was a game like Street Fighter 6, right? And what I mean by that is Street Fighter 6 does have a system in place to allow you to get through the bullshit, right? Unlike a, say, more traditional Street Fighter game, right? Because you have things like Drive Rush, parry, all this kind of stuff, the game is giving you a system to combat this sort of, character that is in the game, right? But then you already have a flaw with the game, you see, because I've talked about before. You should not have universal mechanics in the game that are for everybody, but some characters can use it in a different way than others. some character's version of it is better, right? Like if you're doing that, you are already starting your game, so to speak, kind of disingenuously, and it's an uphill battle, right? So you think like, okay, we got an anime character like JP, again, whatever you want to call him. Now we have a system in place to combat this, but not everybody's Slimer is the same. Some character's Slimer is just better to get in. Well, that seems kind of dumb, right? Why is a universal mechanic better for some characters than the other? Especially in a game that is already so homogenized and we are focusing on the system more so than the characters, right? Doesn't that seem kind of stupid to you? It's the same thing I talked about with Xrd, which I thought was so stupid that you added in YRC, but some characters just can't YRC certain moves. Does that make sense? Why is am I punished for being a certain character that I can't YRC this move? That's kind of dumb. It's a universal mechanic, right? Even when I've talked about, say, and just to play, again, devil's advocate or sort of some sort of hater of mine that might argue, you might be like, oh, well, what about dashing and backdashing? People have different backdashes and dashes. You know what I mean? Does that count as a universal mechanic? And I guess you could say maybe that does for a little bit, but I would also say as well, if you've ever even watched my videos of how I would change Street Fighter, I've said I don't even know if I would actually have dashes and backdashes because, it is such a sort of potential huge change to Street Fighter even, right? But I guess that's kind of like really grasping at straws for that argument. But generally speaking, right, that would be an argument for, the system of Street Fighter 6, but it also shows why Street Fighter 6 is a flawed game, right? But, I've said before, and why I made this image, and I haven't really even done anything with it, but, there's only so many different kind of character archetypes that you can do in a video game, right? There's only so much you can do with the ether, the world of fighting games, like, right? We got this little black thing right here. We can fit so many characters into here. And let's say we got this, rainbow ball right here, blah, 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 right? But we can only add, so many different colors to this thing, right? So many different colors to this thing before it can't fit all in this one ball. It's either going to explode, right? You know what I mean? Something's got to give, or your character is just becoming, we're all just different shades of gray. All these different colors don't even get to come out anymore because you're just trying to mix it all into this one thing, right? So, and that's why I've said this before with Dragon Ball FighterZ. What you can do is you can try to add this little extra, one of the only things you can do in video games, fighting games, because ultimately, again, a fighting game is what? Two characters fighting, a background, and music, right? So one of the only things you can do, because character archetypes are so set in stone, is you can add this little purple circle to sort of expand the ether of the game, to make the world a little bit bigger, right? Because if you have a different system in place in a game, this can now allow some different kind of character archetypes to expand, right? Because one of the problems with fighting games is there's just too many characters, right? There's too many characters, and it's too hard to make truly unique characters when you're throwing 50 different characters in a fucking game. They're going to eventually be different shades of gray, right? But if you add a new system, that can allow you to make the game a little bit different, right? And that's why I've said that Dragon Ball FighterZ is such a, drop ball, because Dragon Ball FighterZ, again, with homing dash, reflecting, what is it? Fireballs, homing, dashing, reflecting, that sort of tug of war between all those mechanics. You had a system that you could have made new character archetypes to expand this bubble, to expand the ether of what a fighting game could be, to allow you to have more characters. And that's why I've used examples of this character. If you look at their tool set, their kit, whatever it is, this could have been a new character archetype, right? And you could have had more excuses to have different kind of things, right? Especially when you have a fucking tag team game, you can expand the ether even more because you have some characters could just be more functional characters. Oh, I have my Dragon Ball character, whatever the fuck it is, right? But anyway, you could say a game like Street Fighter 6, by having the system in place that it does, is it allows a character like JP You know what I mean? It allows a character like Blanc to have anime mix-ups, whatever, because you have different kind of system mechanics to allow you to get in now, right? But then you have a game like Street Fighter 6 where the system is just fucking. Some characters use the fucking, Slimer better than others. How often do people like, Ken Slimer, DJ Slimer, Jury Slimer, right? It's like specific almost, isn't it? Isn't that kind of stupid? It's like I feel like those are specifically the characters you feel like you hear about. I should say, granted, I don't really follow the game, so it's just if something like pops up in my feed, I might check it out. But generally, when I see some of people's like DJ Slimer, Ken Slimer, Jury Slimer, right? Isn't that, correct me if I'm wrong, right? Inform me, make me aware, right? So anyway, again, Street Fighter 6, it's just such a homogenized game. It's like, the one character's just a little bit different. They stick out like a sore thumb, right? I was gonna say a Thor thumb. I can't even fucking speak English, right? And that's what I've always said, man. If I were to make my own Street Fighter game, look at the system I would do. The system actually allows the characters to be special because every character is unique with the system that I talked about, right? And it's like a simple idea too, right? And I wouldn't have fucking 50 goddamn fucking characters in the game, or at least I would try to stay away from it. If I could come up with a cool idea to make every character unique in it, I would, but Anyway. I'm not sure if get what I'm talking about. I talk about these things so often, it gets a little boring to talk about, but I was just thinking about that unique character thing. It was like kind of a correlation doesn't equal causation and whatever, and I'm just glad you didn't draw a pee-pee. I did never draw a pee-pee, Pikachu. I don't know, scroll down. Oh, Jesus, you did draw a pee-pee. Oh, fuck. Jeez, Bob. Draw a booby. That's better. There's some nice boobies, Bob. Thanks, Peachy. I wanted to do it, I was thinking of like, how can I make this funny? So I was thinking about doing a video of like the ether of exploding. Like you can only have so many characters here before a crack forms and it explodes out. So you got to find a way to, get back down to the basics, the fundamental character while having the anime character and then have them a synergistic effect. And I was like, I'm too lazy. I feel like the video was like, subscribe, comment, share, support the channel. I appreciate it. Thanks, the end.